Fine, fine. I'll just fine. Let's move this, click this, layers. One thing I will mention still, I mentioned this earlier as well. Look for like your head goes like this. Think about cats and monkeys and swans. Swans have long necks, or pelicans. It has a this would be your shoulder hump, right? Like old people, they slouch over and they have this very big hump. If you have spikes on your dragon, this is where they go. Otherwise, this one is curling down more until it either goes up or goes wherever it goes. This is like such a weird dragon. What is this wing? Holy cow, this is a chicken. Yeah, I have this posture sometimes when I slouch. I try not to. But otherwise, I've yet to master the art of drawing dragons. I want to draw dragons. Very awesome. What's this? Go away. Let's just make this easy. Oh, there's something there. I can't even see it. Why does this happen? Okay, now it's gone. It can be. Figure out what is suitable reference. And when I thought about like what could I say to make sense of things for the neck, look at monkeys. Look how they slouch and sit on the trees and the branches. Look at what kind of curve do you get. Look at birds. Look at the spine ridge and the spine flow, because between this you would have the difference between something that stands like a sheep, like a dog, like something that stands on its legs, like a horse, like this is like the butt sniffing monkey. Holy cow, what am I drawing, please? It's totally happening. Oh my god. Yeah. And still, I would look at this. I would look at birds. I would look at lizards. I would look at snakes to just be familiar with the curves in general. And then I'm really bad with dragons or any sort of. Look for things that help you understand the anatomy on top of your basic shapes in your construction, because usually in your drawing you have the only anatomy that is really coming into play is the stuff that affects your outline. If there is a muscle, it has to show. If there is a muscle on the butts, it has to show. And this is where the the actual rest of the anatomy is flowing internally inside of your shapes, where you know there is a muscle coming like this, there's a shoulder bone. It does not show on the outside of your shapes. And overall, your dragon is awesome. The neck is, yeah, we know this, and I'm pretty sure you can see this yourself. But otherwise, your dragon. Once you fix the neck, you have a very nice dragon. Otherwise, look at dragon artworks, people that draw dragons, people that paint dragons. See or try to figure out what kind of animals they would use as reference. And then it's basically like, for me, it would be understand the flow of the curve, so that I know this is my butt and this is like more like a lady that is leaning over. But I know this curve in this context. I would try to emulate the curve into something more 3D, where I say this would be my torso and there would be some kind of legs or arms standing to the side. There would be a neck that comes flowing across, where this would be the face. And this is more like there are actual birds that have these weird looking necks, but this would already help. And still, I built this with dragons in mind, so I have to design a face that looks like something dragonish, which again is another step for the entire design. So I look for different things that help you understand the structure and then piece things together. Let's say dragons, they would have, this is now becoming the leg, where I would draw from something that has similar anatomy of some kind. This is like, what is this? What is this? This horrendous creature. And this could be like a beard of some kind. There should actually be teeth. There's a tongue. Um, there would be something like dragons have specific head shapes, and no, I don't know these things. So, so it's a donkey. It's a donkey, llama, kangaroo. Let's see if I can add the wing. But again, there are so many different poses for wings, and at first figure out the structure. And I'm winging it literally. So um, but I would, yeah, like I said, I look at bird wings first, figure out how they fall, how they flow, where this is bad. So again, I would look up reference. Otherwise, if I have cartoony wings, they would be much simpler. This is now becoming a dodo chicken. Yeah, again, like looking up actual reference. So the first step, understand the basic wing structure. Then you have this is attaching to the body of the bird, for example. You have feathers that are layered in different ways, and then it does something like this, right? Where it at first it does this, but you have this effect where it kind of feathers out in a very natural kind of way, and this is what I try to emulate. And then it's about putting this thing in a 3D perspective of awesomeness. Another step that still I like because I analyze this. Then I got to remove this. So again, the simple structure first, triangle, spike, right? Where's my triangle? There's my triangle. Then I would have the spike. And then I could figure out where is the flow of my feathers. So they come from this long side and they move towards the body. And this is just weird kind of analyzing. So, and again, looking up reference is ultimately a good way to make this look sensical. I'm winging it completely. But again, I would build something that looks like a wing in some kind of way. I can make this look like feathers. And this is how you basically you can get away with a lot, but still there are different things that you would need to study. Again, triangle, spike, and then this is where you would have your fingers and hands. If there is some kind of thing, it would still lap between these. And this is the way I picture dragons. They have the stance where they sit on the ground like this. In some kind of way, they kind of crouch, and then the wings of the arms are standing to the side, and I like this pose. Whenever dragons do this, I really, really like this. As in, a human would stand like this, and he would spread his arms like this. His hands would be like this. For the general bird anatomy, wing anatomy, you would have a different kind of attachment for the joint, and then you have feathers between that flow in a weird way. Yeah, like a bat, exactly. Exactly. Let's say the gesture that the bird is doing in this way, in this case, I like it. I love it for whatever reason. And I see it in birds, so I try to, whenever I think about this stuff, I would try to describe the thing that I want to draw or see, study in a natural gesture. let's say in a more natural kind of appearance, where you have a diagram of a human being like this. It's a stickler, and it doesn't look interesting. So artworks based on this style will kind of have a very dry, bland appearance. So what I would do is portray this structure in a space that has perspective, and this adds visual interest to the entire thing. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it does add appeal, including, in addition, throwing down a box or a plane for the ground. It still describes the same structure in a very simple way, but it adds like this marvelous awesomeness, and I love it. No joke. It's a feast for the brain, it's a feast for the mind. And this for me, it's part of gesturing out things. So when you have body language, things sometimes change where you have different angles. This could be pushed to the side, where things will never stand on the same ground plane like this. And usually I see this done a lot. People would just put their character on a flat ground where you could just draw a square like this that is in perspective, which still it adds your 3D space. The point is, when the hip is changing and something is being pushed back into space and forward into space, you cannot align your things with the same ground plane. If this arm is coming forward and holding a spear or a flagpole, aligning this with the same ground plane will kill the space and flatten out the space. Instead, what we know is that there is a distance, like I'm stretching my arm forward, so it's not aligned with my ankles that are sitting on this one ground plane. So the pole would end up being forward, and this is why I draw the 1 point perspective plane, because it can describe this. So when I have legs, one of these would definitely go back, and the other one would go far forward in space. But again, I have a very simplified structure of my thing, which is the anatomy, and I can transpose this into a 3D from a 2D kind of standpoint. Yeah, think stuff. So gesture is a thing, weird kind of thing. And generally, gestures, all kind of gestures work. Make them work in the simplest way. And basically you can say that you have it in your brain because break it down to the simplest thing, study the simplest thing, and then you will see that you study this and it turns into this, which turns into this, and it just goes higher and higher and higher, and it all builds on this fundamental thing. It's weird still. If you want to break this down more, you would end up with the line that the simple building block that is making up the structure. And whatever your structure is describing, whatever the space or the form is telling your brain, or form, and basically knowing where things point in space, like in 3D space, but on your 2D plane, it's all in the lines. It's weird. So simply described, from my shoulder point, I can cast out 2 angles that will cover 90-degree space. This goes around in a 360-degree way. Please confirm. So from this we can say we have these points, we have 45 degrees, we have all of these compartments. And the line that I have can always be put on a circle where you can say it has these compartments between 90 degrees, any kind of 90 degrees. I can draw an angle like this. And this angle applies to this space. If I draw a different angle like this, it applies, and you can move this around and find the right place. Whatever angle I would have, it is part of this thing. If I point at these endpoints and make this, right, I put the line on the circle and I mark down these endpoints, and from the center position I would have this one thing that would basically rotate around the center point. and all it's really doing, it is changing angle. So we have a descriptor that basically says if I have a line in any of these directions, it is put into place on a system that lets you analyze 3D space by basically saying you have 360-degree space and every line has a logical place on the circle. This is the 2D approach because the space that I have is basically flat. So the circle that we see is on the front of our x and y space. So and then we go into space where we have things that are basically weirdly aligned and we can have ellipses. The ellipse is still a circle where you have your 4 compartments of 90-degree space. And then we go back to this and remember every line, every angle has a logical placement on your 3D space kind of ring. So wherever your ring is, whatever angle you draw, you can still locate this, right? Basically, you can. So look at this one. Why did I draw it this way? And we can say, I would say this is the thing that is pointing completely to the side. Why? I don't know. So whatever other angle I have, this one, I can still point it on at least one of these locations. They would eventually mirror. So there is another one, right? So this one. And again, if I do this, I can do this twice and move it along the same line or the same direction. Directions are basically coming from your point, from your middle point, and they run through. You can do this. You have your arc of your 90 degrees, you make a point, and then you draw an arrow coming from your center point to the outline. This is your direction. So again, we have any angle, any line can be found on the circle. And this means every angle that I do is a thing that tells me a direction in 3D space. Like skaboosh. It's basically blowing my own mind. Because I go from something that has no meaning, like everybody does a line. So I would draw a transition between basically 0 and draw a transition to where this thing is deciphering, it's not a B, is deciphering 3D space. Maybe it has to sink in. Going from this is basically when you think about the amount of poses the body can do, it is a mere accumulation of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You would have your ring, which is basically you have a ring around the hips, and the legs can point in certain directions. They cannot point in all directions. So you have a limit that is dictated by anatomy and bones, different things. Wherever it is going, you have your circle. You have your directions, and then you would figure out where is it pointing. So you can draw a cylinder or a cube to visualize this in a simple way. Drawing cubes is generally boring and many don't like it and many don't do it, so do it. And for the reason that if you understand basically this, and you can say this is a cube, and for me the interesting part was, or actually where it turned into is, if I say draw a cube and stop after the first line, and again this is where things become weird because this is a line and you wouldn't even pay much attention. For me, every line exists in perspective. Like, straight up, because there's always perspective. And things are never really not in perspective. usually people look at lines in different ways. And so the sensical part is that like everything is made from lines. When I draw, this is coming out of my pencil. When I do it this way, it's still a line, and I can draw this in 360-degree angles, which then, I have again this transposition, something going on where I transition between 2D and 3D. And still, this thing, it can exist on the 2D plane, it can exist on the 3D plane. Something. So every line has states where they either point into space or they point on your 2D space, which is you have your 2D space and you have your XYZ space. And then you can draw a line going straight through. At this point, the line will go around the corner, which you can't see, so the line is basically straight. But at the one point, it does indeed go around the corner, which you can't see because it's, something is going on. It's weird. So you can technically cut the cube at this place and say, it's like a, can't even do this, like a piece of cake. So understanding the lines, so understanding the cubes and the volumes and space, many would have or wish to have the ability that comes from understanding this, because it basically goes to wherever you want to go with your art. It opens up all these doors, and maybe there would be, let's say you would have these stepping stones, and I would skip like 50 or 100 of these stepping stones and say, this is what you need, and then you make a huge step so you can draw awesome things. There are still these different other stepping stones. This is a very old version, actually. Super old, not uptimes, yes. Round objects, you have your circle, which you can break into. Remember this, you have your circle. The circle is organic, it is round and curved. You simplify the circle and you would have a perfect square. Between these you have multiple points on your square that you can extrude into space to form something that is more round. And this is the way you transition between something that is angled and something that is round. Still, understanding this helps me to understand this. Because the potato shape, the circle, the round form, still has a top. Just like the cube. The cube has a top. So between these and between the potato and the cube, the difference is the section. If I remove this, I have a two-dimensional shape that still has the appearance of something more 3D because I can see these angles, and we are very familiar with basic geometry. Like everything is boxes. Our cars are boxes, our houses are boxes, my box is a box, my PC screen is a box. So we are familiar with the shape. The thing is that this would have a contour like this. So I have the top, the sides. The round potato still has something where it has to have a contour like this. The thing is that at this point it can't be a point, it has to be something around so that I would have a smooth transition between these points. And still I have a separation between the top, the side, the front, etc., just like the cube. 1, 2, 3. Basically I would have 1, 2, 3, just like the cube. Let's say looking at this line, and I will break this apart at these points, it's a round thing that breaks into pieces, just like your circle does, in 4 pieces at first. Then you have 8, and you just cut this into pieces until you have just some kind of cake that is just good. So I transitioned between figuring out this to figuring out the roundness. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to draw the roundness. And I think I had a diagram earlier. Look at this one. At first you have your circle. This is round. You break it apart into basically these planes. I think there was another diagram. It's like breaking apart roundness. And I have usually, or basically, you have these curves. And again, you make points on the curve step by step by step. You connect the curves, and you would have the curve or the complexity simplified. This is what I do in my brain, step by step, all the time, pretty much every day. There again, there's another one. You have the roundness of the circle, the cylinder, and then you break this apart into step by step by step. So you have this angled kind of view that still gives you the hint of roundness, but you have this being in compartments, step by step. And doing the simple lets you understand the complex so much more. So at first, really understanding not just the cube, but how to go into space. You want to go into space. Basically, if you don't know how to go into space, all you really do is, and I don't mean this in a mean way, so all you really do is you transition on a 2D space, because that is what you see. Then if you want to transition inside the 3D space with your objects, with basically your characters and your body language and your dragons and your poses, you have to understand the illusion that something comes from someplace else. And you have a 2D snake that eventually it turns into this arrow. Because again, an arrow gives me ideas of direction. And this arrow does indeed tell us where it is going. And it's not pointing at us. Certainly. It's pointing completely to the side. Let's say knowing this with cubes and planes. And all I really do is I have a circle, I have an ellipse somewhere in the space, I have multiple ellipses. And all I really do is I build a plane that is basically pointing in any random direction. What is tricky is to keep the space all pretty and so that it actually makes sense. And I will take this curve and build it into something 3D, so it makes a little bit more sense. This too, I mean, where would this ability come from? And I can only guess, but I know how much I studied cubes and analyzed things down towards breaking things down to lines and angles. Lines and angles is all I really have. If I apply lines and angles in the right place, like this is my line and it has this kind of angle. In this place, it has a different angle. In any other place, it may have a different angle. If I change things around, I would change the surface. Meaning, if I have this one and I have it twice and I run this down, I don't change angle, I only really change direction. It's a plane that it looks, there's a box, then it goes down and then it goes straight. If I do this and then I change something to my line, it gives you a completely different idea of what the surface is. And still there is something like a ribbon that is basically bending and twisting. And still it could end up at some kind of arrow pointing device, so I would have an idea of where it's going, or basically my brain needs to know where it is going. So, again, lines, and when you change its angle, it will give you, it's transforming so much in so many different weird ways, because again, you go into the space. And technically you can do this in many different ways, where you can't really see what is happening at this point because it's kind of overlapping, but still you have a plane like this one that is overlapping the other one. then this one would continue. Again, depending on how I change my lines and my angle, I twist the ribbon, basically. So at some points, all you see is a line, only because your geometric plane is in this perspective and it only presents so much. Weird stuff. Still, I kind of had to go crazy on the science to figure this out. Let's say every line that, let's say I take this point and I draw a single line like this. What we have to understand is our plane, and this is our point, this is our line. And what we have to determine in our 3D space is the line going up straight? Does it go back into space or does it go forward into space? So the actual determination of where this line is pointing is not yet in the drawing. So where does it go? We can have it point towards us as the viewer, or we can point it away. This is the difference between having a line, having two, and if I do it this way, we have a cylinder this way. If I do this and this, and I do this way, we have a different cylinder. So the difference between these is the one is pointing at us, the other one is pointing away. Where this is the top, and I would only see the top if the cylinder is in this kind of position. If the cylinder is pointing away, I would see the bottom as the opening, and only in this position. So between these I have, let's say, x degrees, doesn't really matter, but I have to apply it to this way. So again, I can use the circle, and I just do this, and I have a cylinder that is pointing backwards. If I do it this way, you can see that the cylinder is actually overlapping the thing. And only because I at first understand this, and you have to understand the perspective, kinda, or basically how it shows. And again, the way I analyze this cylinder stuff, I know that I have two guide rails, and this is the magic space. How do you close the magic space? If you do it this way, you have something that is very flat and If you do it this way, you have still your two guide rails, Bob and Jeff, but you have perspective, and then you close it off like this, instead of having something like this. Otherwise, you have your box, and everything, it still works, but there's a difference. So again, this is the kind of thing you would have a line going from every point, and you would need to determine where it's actually going. So the cool perspectives are basically where you would have a line that does imply the foreshortening and how this one actually comes towards you. Then we would go down and basically build our hand or feet going from this point. And then we have a different cylinder that has to go this way in a kind of symmetrical order kind of thing. This one goes down and it is overlapped by our structure. Still the hand would be behind this one. Magic stuff. And something, the simple is just a repetition. When you just have this, it's nothing. When you have this and this and this and this and this and this and this million times, you would say, oh, this is very detailed and very complex. Also, this is complex. Let's say I cut this into pieces, and what I look for is the 90-degree transition between this piece. The cube has a 90-degree transition basically at its edge, because the way this goes around is your 90 degrees, so it's kind of inside, but it's still there. So then what you look at is basically the transition between these two, and then you transition these two, so that eventually you will carve off enough pieces of your form to give you the impression that this is actually supposed to be round. And this is kind of the reason why I always draw angled outlines. When you have this, you have an instant idea of there are planes that kind of form this thing. Otherwise, you always have a cube where you have your basic box in some kind of way. You have geometric planes. Midnight, it is tricky, and I don't. It's so mean. It's so mean. Um, I'm like the art bully. I'm like the art bully. This is midnight, and I'm like, I give myself a brush, so I'm punching you with the brush instead of um, I don't want to physically hurt you, so it's not really anything I want to do. But I'm this art bully, and whatever issues you would have, you do get them out of the way by practicing. So if you want to have this animated, it would be like practice, practice, practice. Ish, whoosh, ish, whoosh, practice, practice. I don't want to be this guy, but like if there's any kind of comical way to illustrate this, it would be this one. Yeah, it's not something I do, but yeah. Something just for the scene that you're trying to draw. I would break apart the the realistic person, which is like body language and gesture. Then you have the dragon, which is basically animal reference, where you have the gesture and the pose. Then you have to bring them both together and stuff and things. Uh, I know why I keep things simple, because I would run into the same problems that I would need to analyze so that I can fix them. And I mean, all you guys, you know how much I practice, and like, don't get me wrong, I do want to make stuff, but I know that if I try to make stuff, I would run into the same problems where I don't know how to do this, So, and in my reality, it's more suitable for my brain to go back, take things apart. It's basically you have this pillow, and it is your favorite pillow. And it's like soft and it smells good. It's like awesome, and then you go and like rah, and all the feathers go everywhere. And what you basically do is all the feathers, they are floating, and you just pick one, and you just look at one and one and one, and you try to really understand why your pillow is so awesome. So in this case, it's like drawing. It's like my pillow. I want to draw. So um, I can still struggle. I will run into the same problems. And for one reason, I still fail. I fail every day for so many different hours. Um, Failing for when I actually try to express something, it would be, you are very disturbed, and we don't want this to happen. So in a way, not being able to handle my frustration and basically biting myself through and producing a drawing, I go back into the study chamber, lock myself into it for months and months and months, and study like a madman so that I can, come out reborn. And that is a weird kind of way of looking. But everybody goes to the gym and pumps up their muscles. Wow, I'm a man, so I need muscles and something. I don't go to the gym, but I lift my pencil, just like you guys lift your weights. Same thing. I lift my pencil just like people grind in Quest and Destiny and I don't even know whatever esports they're into. Can, can I do this animation again? Yes, I can. Clip this. Clip this. That will tell you when. I gotta make this proper so it works. I will put this on a layer so we have proper animation. Okay, how did it go? And oops, the Wiener line totally misplaced. It will go like this, right? You gotta practice. Practice. And eventually, I will become very good at punching. And you will be very good at either Yeah, and during the pain of practicing, there's another wiener line. These wiener lines, I should put my mouse cursor in a different place, but this is basically what I did to myself. Like, I had to punch myself just over and over again, so that and it's still something that I do, and I do have the desire to draw and express, just like I do with my sub drawings. Like, I love doing these because I can do something interesting, and but still I do need more. Oh, this was an interesting one because I knew I learned something. Do you have recorded? What do you mean? What recording? My usually the streams, they are in my past broadcast section. The good streams, they do go into my highlights, and I will definitely highlight this one. It was very very educational. Yeah, almost 5. I will show you real quick. So in my channel stream thing, you go on the top videos. This will redirect you to a page that looks like this. Go there, all videos, past broadcasts. Otherwise, go to my highlights, and many streams are in this place. The educational stuff is in my highlights. If you go to my uploads, you find my time lapses. These are all my time lapses. Like, I go in really quick. It's like speed up 5 times, 8 times. If you go to the broadcast section, this is basically what I have in my VODs. In the past broadcasts highlights. Control F and look for educa, educa. Yeah, I can't type. Educational. Look for educational, and you will see the highlights and all of this. This is basically what I rerun in my VODs multiple times. Yeah, this is how you can find all the videos. The Frankfurt Zeta of Pooch. What is this even? I don't know what this is, but I like his sketches. Frazetta sketches are awesome. And back to ranting about learning stuff. I gotten into body language, gesture language properly like 2 years ago, and I had like 8 years of time to basically start drawing gestures and body language, but I let myself go. And, I just wanna skip around and sleep and draw other things. So eventually, you have to bite and chew things. I'd say you figure out the basic ones, and this is like learn the mechanics. Don't learn every individual pose. Learn how it comes together. This coming together is basically understand face, torso, hips, legs. These are your building blocks. And then figure out the mechanics, body language, like how collarbone and hips interact because of the spine, how the different functions work, etc., etc. This you learn once, and you are basically able to construct your own poses. On top of this, you learn how to construct from geometry, boxes and cylinders. So this will it's not just about the cube, it's always about the 3D volume, because when you draw sleeves and body armor, you will know that you have to go around your forms and not just stay on your 2D plane, but you have to go around. Try to paste it. I'm curious if you can paste the clips. Paste it once, I will give you a permit. Second time. I just want to purge you. So sometimes I see people get purged. Otherwise, yeah, okay. It reads it as a link. It reads it as a link, which is weird. You took it like a man. You took it like a man. Good stuff. See, you leveled up your skills. Yeah, I want to see that too, and I want to do that too. But still, it takes a little bit of understanding. And if I would go in without the understanding to make it at least feasible and viable that I can pull this off, things that where I struggle, they would just take up more time. So you can basically draw something nice. You just spend 500,000 hours on it. But I'd rather have things done in one and move on to the next instead of spending 5, 10 hours on it just because I never practiced it. There's the thing. If I struggle, that's fine. But if I look back and say, okay, I never practiced this. So of course I will struggle. This is the of course that I give myself. And I punch myself because I know I have to practice this. Otherwise, things will always be hard, but only because I never practiced them. I will be back at doing figure drawings very soon. Like figuring out the face and the head space, meaning the space around. I will go into figure drawing, gesture drawing, like complete people things and all that good stuff, instead of just choking my butt off when I do studies. It served its purpose, but now it's over. No time to play. It is a kind of logical transition anyway. Oh, look at this! Ink One is doing bird stuff. He's doing bird stuff. That is awesome. He's doing wings. Funny enough, because we talked about this earlier. Oh, so many things to play. Gee, let's uptime check one more time. Okay, almost 5. I will do another drawing, and then I will look for somebody to host. Okay, it's late enough. 8. 5 is good. 5 is good. I mean, yeah, you can always struggle, and technically I'm there, I'm here to learn to draw really good. I don't just want to struggle through things. We all have different intentions. I like to be good so that I can express myself, and I like to express myself in a kind of skill-wise manner that I really smash it, I really kill it because I want to express myself. This is where my drive and my desire would come from. I have no desire to create artworks that are basically trash, or where I look at things and I say this sucks, and it only sucks because I didn't spend 5 hours on practicing this. Like if I try to draw characters, and this is one of my trouble zones right now, like I can't attach the face properly to the neck, as in the 3D face attached to a 3D neck, so that I understand how much the face overlaps the neck and all the different spatial attributes of 3D space stuff. I couldn't really succeed on drawing this masterpiece in super awesome illustration where I have people fighting monsters and dragons. Because all of the things they have necks and they need a face that has to be properly attached. Yeah. So some things they work for me and some things don't. But I'd rather not struggle when I try to do illustrations. I accept the struggle when I learn, and the point is not we don't learn for just learning's sake. We learn to improve, and we do this usually in games and things. And it seems to be easier, but otherwise it should be fun and it should be playful. Otherwise, having a guarantee where you basically go through a severe struggle for, let's say, it has a limit, right? You don't practice mindlessly, blindly cubes for years and a lifetime. There will be a progress and a progression where you become able to do things differently and better, and you can explore other things that used to be very hard, and basically you had no ability to do things. I will pop up one thing. I will give a shout out to Pommeline. Just to illustrate, where's her Twitter? So one day I was just strolling by in her stream, and she mentioned about learning how to draw. So I offered her help, and she was bad. Like, she had never done any kind of sort of practice, and she couldn't really draw, and it was hard. Like, everything was hard. It was really a struggle. Like a browse. Come on, Twitter. So with the right practice and with the right doing kind of things, you basically you have to want. I don't know. You have to want it really. Otherwise, it's just work. Where is it? So she posted a kind of progression between 1 year. I'm trying to find it. Which is a crazy improvement. Come on, scroll, so much scrolling. Okay, that is. So I did help her a lot with basics, and like learning how to see, learning how to observe. We talked about face construction in this 1, 2, 3 stuff. So this is it. I was there on September 16 when we did this drawing, and we talked about Photoshop and painting and curves and lines and stuff. And it, like, essentially it's mind blowing. Like, and her belief, she couldn't do anything. She was playing League of Legends and she always wanted it, but when you don't know, when you just don't know how to do things or fix things, or essentially have a kind of pathway that says do this and then do this, and then you have the progression, and this is what you look for, so that we can essentially look at the complex, break it down, understand the simple basic compartments, the different pieces of the complex thing, and then we progress step by step by step by step. And that is how we learn. That is how our brain has to learn, step by step. Like, of course, she would have liked to do this picture on the right side, like first day. Who wouldn't? But still, you gotta do the steps, and she did the steps, and she will still do more steps. Like, in a year, she will be crazy good if she do the practice. Like, you gotta continue. You can't just stop. But you get the point. I'm pretty sure you get the point. It's insane. It is insane. And let's say whatever she knows about painting, I helped her with the basics, like the basics of stuff. And she did a crazy amount on her own, and it was great stuff. I'll drop a link. Pommeline is at the moment at the TwitchCon, so she's not streaming, but you can totally follow her on the channels if you want. You could ask her about stuff. how she learned and how she get good. Practice, practice, practice. I mean, as good as my drawings are today, I went through crazy amounts of progression, and you can go back to like old streams from 2015, basically. That's crazy. It's really crazy. And if I open, this is something I will do eventually, like open old PSD documents to look at my ugly drawings. How do you create manga? Do you mean the comics? Do you mean the comic books, the physical things? I don't really know, and I wouldn't be the one to ask. Who does manga? I would try. Let's see if I find this guy Mellow. Where is he? He's not in the thing. I don't really do manga. Otherwise, there should be guides on either YouTube or Google. And I'm still trying to think who does manga on Twitch, something similar. I mean, there are different things involved, and I can only think about like there's the drawing, and then you have the logistics and the printing and delivering and such. Otherwise, in the comic, you still have panels, and you got a layout and all that. Shiverings, shiverings. To be a good artist, one must sacrifice chicken every month in the name of Poos. The first chicken is Batsuki! Yay! Chicken of the day! Woohoo! We have our sacrifice, boys. Let's go. What is the name at night? I can't think of anyone. Otherwise, Shilin. And I don't have a link handy. Otherwise, I only know people that do comics, the comic book in general, but it's not really manga. Yeah, if you can't share the username or the link, I can give you another permit. You can totally. Yeah, Mellow. Do you have a link? Can you post a link for Mellow? Because I don't have it. I'm a scrub. And I do remember he was streaming today or yesterday. I'm pretty sure he was streaming. He should have some ideas though. He is more into this stuff. He should definitely have more ideas. Thank you for watching, Marlies. Thank you. I definitely got to do some. I'm getting close to eyebrows, eyelashes. Wait, no, eyelids. That is the thing, eyelids, which are very tricky because they're curvy and I don't know, flopping around the sphere of the eyeballs. He something. He could still have some ideas on where to get some information. Here's something about general facial design or the basic how I do structure. There are so many different ways to draw a facial structure. Like within the realm of realistic, and yet you have so many different types of faces, even dead ones, or zombies, where you have where the anatomy is actually physically changed. And what I do is I put down landmarks, and then I try to kind of build in and make it work. Sometimes the lines will not work, so I find new ones, or lines that I like, etc., etc. Some just don't work. How do you see yourself improve this? I mean, it looks really good, yes. Let's say the things that I could produce, they were decent. The amount of understanding that I collected in my brain, that is where things just went nuts. Like, even right now, like, I'm not producing, and this is the thing. Like, if I actually, try to draw something awesome, then you could get a better idea of what my skill level is actually like. I would need to draw a couple of things, but otherwise, in my studies, it doesn't really show. And even though doing these is fairly quickly, so yeah, I do have an improvement. Let's see if I find this one. I have an old skill progression image. Yeah, it kind of gives an idea. These things for reference. Oh lord. But the faces from Mind in 2015, they were not so bad. And still right now, like I'm rocking it. Like not so much for the outcome of the result that you can see and I put on paper, but for I have in my brain and the way I can approach these drawings. What kind of type? How to manipulate 3D form, or basically the way lines manipulate 3D form in space. Oh boy, this is very sexy. So what this would mean is basically you have this face, and I gotta rotate this just slightly so it's more straight. So there is it's basically I have a space, a 3D space like a cube, and my face is existing inside. I don't draw the cube, but I would know I can hint on any kind of, I don't know, that could just I can draw a plane and make this thing just like a head and it's sitting on the plane. Otherwise, I can use different planes to kind of play around with just what is the actual distance or the depth of this face. So something would have to show this, otherwise I can, I don't know, give this guy horns. So let's say attach something to this guy's face where it should connect naturally. So the form, it shouldn't just be like let's say like a cube sticking away from his face. So the transition between the surface has to be very smooth. So the lines and the curves, they have to follow this. So the entire structure still it has to flow naturally. That is kind of, this was, oh, it was so tricky. Oh, so much suffering, so much punching and practice. Let's say doing this effectively, finding out how to do this, finding out how to fix the mistakes. Let's say effectively really understanding the structure in a more 3D kind of way. Yeah, I definitely, I don't know. It's hard to measure. So many things that used to be hard are now so easy. I can manipulate things so easy. Doing studies is very effective. I can make use of things just because they make sense in terms of lines and angles and planes and triangles. And if I see a surface, I can just do things. I don't know. I don't know, but it helps. It definitely helps. Something that I like is sticking out these bones, like really sticking them out and still making them flow into the face. So one of the things is analyzing or understanding that this at the front face, this one, is a plane that is going straight down. Then these wings or these weird things, they're basically wrapping around this entire thing, which is basically you have your box and there is a ring, which is sitting like Saturn, right? You have your potato and then you have the Saturn rings. So still, the idea is to make this actually look like it is wrapping around this line. I really like this one. So here's something else. Just starting with a single line and building this into where this one has depth. And it looks like there is some kind of thing that has actual thickness. That's the word. And it starts with just one line, like so. Still, let's see if we can put this into things. I'd say making the perspective look correct in whatever way. At least like the form, when the form actually flows within the Fibonacci, sacred geometry, golden planes, ratios and stuff, you will see, like you will notice straight up. Otherwise, if it's broken, you may sense this, but sometimes it's tricky to analyze. This is wonky. Even training my arm to do these angles like fluidly around the corner that doesn't even exist at some point. But this is awesome. It's kind of nonsensical in this way. Um, as far as my brain goes, if I transition this and progress this, I build um, my medieval armor this way, like tanks and guns, anything that I want to draw, I can just go nuts and build shapes and forms. Let's say the practice, it's a weird word, but I do need to control this so that I can um, get through the rapids, like sitting in a boat, and then you have this weird river, and there's stones you have to maneuver and such, and you don't want to flip over. I'd say it's part of this is always creativity, and the other part is again sounds a bit like you have to have the skill. And doing this kind of stuff, it, you know, in variations and abstractions, you do have to have a skill, and it is learnable. It's not depending on talent or any sort of things. And it is even learnable in a quicker amount of time than most would believe. But you got to do the right practice. At least you have to have somebody that will tell you how this works, so that you can effectively progress through your studies instead of just spending time on figuring out how it actually works. You already know how it works, and you can practice and progress towards the goal more quicker and more effectively, more efficiently. say, yeah, I love it. That's all I can really say. I love it. So all I really do, and we end up back at like lines. Any line can be placed on your 3D space circle, something, something. So um, I don't know, but there is a simplicity, and I'm drawing from things that I learned by understanding how to draw cubes. Still, and many wouldn't believe this, and usually people don't study and draw cubes in the insane amount that I did it. But whatever magic there is contained in being able to draw cubes in different length, in different places, in different orientations, it is a one-way ticket. Like there is a magic that will just skaboosh your mind and destroy your the limits of your imagination. Basically, I don't know. I don't know. And still, like if I never really studied cubes, like how could I effectively learn and know what I know about analyzing cubes? And still, like if I look into my brain and look at what I know about drawing and the way I explain things, I can always guess. Maybe it's all wrong. Like it could be completely wrong. Like whatever I say about this is how it works and drawing cubes and this is where you go, it could be so wrong that it doesn't really work. So it's still, how can I draw the things that I draw? Like somewhere down the line it has to make sense. So there has to be a weird kind of common ground that where artistry meets the skill. This, and it would be like a very magical place because like learning, you learn this one unit and you combine this with your own artistry, which is essentially infinity. It's infinite. Like there's no limit to the things we can imagine and basically create. And this means there is like from this point, it's all up to you. It's all up to you. And this one unit that we learn is basically language. It's just another thing, or whatever we are into. And some things are very important when it comes to uh, basically expressing or self-expression. Like speaking a language, spoken language, written language is still the main way to communicate. So, and we can't do it telepathically yet. So gotta wait. So again, like we learn this one unit and we combine it with words, with whatever we want to say, or we sing, or we poetry. We can write music and lyrics and have fun with language in silly ways, in stupid ways, in funny ways, in all the ways. I like drawing. Did I say this already? I really like drawing. I remember, like a couple of months back, I was drawing, doing the same thing. I was on stream and I was like, I hate this. I pulled through. I did, kinda. I'm loving it. So if I could sell you anything, it would be first the guarantee that things run without talent. You gotta learn the hard kind of not so tasty core of the skill, and then it's all up to you. And it is learnable. You don't need talent. You just gotta understand how the basics kind of come into play, and then you can kind of perform the ballet. Let's say, yeah, this is interesting, and I like doing this kind of stuff, even though it doesn't really, it doesn't mean much in the world of entertainment industry. But having this kind of stuff available as prints or something, if people like it, um, it may not look this kind of demonic, but let's say a nice, beautiful female body. I don't know, but there are many possibilities. So, yes, arts and things, arts and things. And I gotta thank Heike for Heiki for the question, because the question led my brain into good places, including drawing this. Let's go through this once. Switch. I could totally make this one dirty, but that would not be nice. You are the tentacle. Skaboosh. Is it awkward yet? Is it awkward yet? Did we reach the point of no return? This is too much. There could be a squiddy in there. Squiddy puss. Let's not go that far. We have done enough tentacles for today. These are horns or weird things. These are like pimples, but different. That makes sense. Just acne. What's going on today? Just acne. It's cool. It's fine. Special kind of acne. Yeah, I'm really liking this. Facial structure is fine. Um, like the overall design is questionable, and I can't really praise it as the best. So it's okay. Otherwise, the transition between the planes and the way some parts of this thing look very organic, and I do like the flow, like how it's shown between the elements. Oh shit! Oh shit! It's not good. Please contain. Abort! 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 We have rapid growth. Abort! 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 This is don't do science, kids. It's not gonna end well. Abort! definitely gotta fix the nose. Otherwise this would be weird. Keep an eye on the time. Anybody in California from you guys? 12 p.m. It's like 9 or 10 my time. So 50 minutes, okay, so yeah, I gotta step soon, and then I will probably find somebody to host. I will run VODs later tonight and probably until tomorrow. The VODs actually stop after 24 hours, so keep that in mind if you see the timer. I try to be around when that happens. If I start it now, it will crash tomorrow at that time. When the VOD is running, I do play ads occasionally, more or less. I usually don't like to bombard you. Otherwise, it does help. It's not much, but it's a nice boost for the Twitch money. Otherwise, you can always get the video without me sitting there playing ads. So if you just wanna watch the video, check the title. It will say which video is playing. You can click on it, and it will link you to the page. Otherwise, if you do watch the ads or just mute the things, it does help, and I do appreciate the support. What do I do with this one? There's something.